Hello there. I am so glad you're here tonight. And just so you know, I'm a little tense about doing this topic because to me, it's kind of a catch-22. This is something that needs to be discussed. It's a big, hairy deal. Um, there's all kinds of stuff grieving with it. And I think it matters a lot because we have a lot going on in our country, in our world, in our environment, in our safe places. And there's a lot that kind of falls in the cracks sometimes. And I've been following this story for a long time. One of the people that I'm going to talk about lost her life in my area. And it's something that it really needs to be talked about a lot more than it is. But I'm going to be talking about the missing and killed. They didn't just randomly show up dead. They were killed. People who have been involved in our space program with our looking into the different types of craft, the people that have been doing all kinds of stuff. They've been looking at weapons. They've been doing all kinds of research. And right now, there are ostensibly 14 people who are dead. I'm not going to talk about all 14. I won't have time to do that. But I want all of their families to know how very much I personally care about what happened to their loved ones. Because I can't imagine, if I do a bad show, nobody's going to off me, right? Maybe. But if I get my wires crossed, I'm not going to be disappeared. If Carl, gets frustrated because I can't upload an image or something, then he's probably not going to do that either. It's just one of those things that is unbelievable. And it's been hiding in plain sight. Our government has known this was happening. They have. People don't disappear just into a void when they are well respected, top of their field, or they wouldn't be doing what they do. Researchers. These are good people. Well, I don't know about if they're good people, but they're good scientists. And I was shocked. I've wanted to do this show for a little while. And then as I was doing some research and reading on it, I heard, I don't remember who made the initial announcement that our government was going to be looking into this. And then lo and behold, I'm sitting there looking at stuff, and our president is talking about a commission to look into this, an investigation at least. I don't know if there's a commission formed for it yet or not. There needs to be. And whoever is doing this, it needs to be on the level of the Nuremberg trials, because you don't just do this. We've got so many. And one person that I wanted to talk about, I've been hearing about these for a couple of years. And if you think about it, you probably have too. Okay, because it was one person that was involved that just disappeared, and they didn't necessarily say that they were working at, NASA, or that they were part of JPL, or, whatever. But it was a missing woman who, she was out on a hike with her friends, and she was going over a ridge, and she just turned, the picture is of her smiling and waving back at her friends, and she's having a great time. She's on a friend hike, right? Never saw or heard from her again. And I know that we had a lot of issues, particularly in California, with people that weren't supposed to be here. We didn't know their background history. Were there criminals? Were there, people that would just take a woman and never to be seen again? Yeah, there's trafficking. There's a lot of that stuff that was going on, and I don't know how she got lost, but she got lost. She was gone. And we're not talking people that aren't going to show up for work the next day, right? We're not talking about people who, nobody's going to miss them if they don't show up. We're talking about people who have lives, who have careers, who have friends. I can't even imagine what her friends thought. I travel with a group of women. Our husbands dubbed us, the wicked wenches like 20 years ago. But if one of us were to not come back, we would tear up wherever we were until we found her. That's what happens. When I fell and broke my knee, they didn't walk off and leave me. They got me help. These women, I'm certain, just tore that place up looking for her. It wasn't big news, was it? Until she was one of the first. And, it's just so weird that this has been allowed to go on. We, unless the government wants to tell us that ET came and took them home, I don't know. But I did look into some of these, and I'm going to start with somebody that I think is probably the newest. And this guy, you probably haven't even heard of him yet, or you may have, because he is all over the place. He's not on the missing list. He's just out there. And I found him because I was trying to find some information that I had on one of the other people. And so I just Googled, missing scientists on Facebook. Also, I looked at missing scientists, and this name came up that I hadn't heard of. Matthew James Sullivan, 39, Bronze Star recipient, USAF intelligence officer with a top secret clearance. He agreed to testify regarding U.S. government secret UFO crash retrieval program. Well, he saw non-human craft in USA possession. Dead 2 weeks before he was going to testify from an overdose of Xanax, I think a cold medicine, and something else. And I just don't think there's a lot that's not holding water on that. And he's really all over Facebook because he is kind of, and this is going to sound terrible, and I don't consider him to be such, but he's kind of the flavor of the week relevant to this topic because, he's younger. It was an overdose. It was an accidental overdose if it wasn't a helped along. And I'm not saying it was. But something happened because of his coming forward to testify. And, Lou Elizondo was who was setting this up for him to testify. And, you've all watched the hearings, or probably you've watched if you watch the show, you've probably watched the hearings, right? But so many people have come forward. I know and have listened to some of these people in different venues, different conversations. And probably I'll reach out to see if I can get them on, because I think that I'm going to try to steer more towards a UFO based show. I love cryptids, and I love ghosts, and I love things that I can't explain. But I think this, and I'm tapping my notebook like y'all can see me do that, but I think this is something that matters. And when I was interviewing the other day with my guys here, Joe, and I'm going to be interviewing Jason also. But coming to this topic is mattering so much. I mean, this is not a nothing burger. This is a big deal. And I think that this is something that's going to affect all of us as a civilization. We're not the only people with missing scientists, but ours are the only ones I'm focusing on tonight, because it's scary. I mean, these people are well educated. They have worked for their country. They are working for their country. And I just can't get this. I can't imagine, apparently I'm wrong, that in this day and time, it would be that big a deal to talk about UFOs, to talk about the fact that there's been interaction with UFOs. We had Roswell. We also had things before Roswell. When I interviewed, oh my goodness, how long ago was this? But when I interviewed Jacques Vallée, it was so interesting, because when I brought up Trinity, he just kind of went, oh, Trinity was a good bit in those times prior to Roswell, same area. And the only reason that people outside of the families that lived on that land knew anything about it was because when the UFO came in and crashed with 3 occupants, one of whom was deceased, one of whom was going to be because he was injured badly, and then another one that was wandering at the time, and 2 children found them, but they saw the crash. But the UFO clipped a, I guess in that period, they called them transmission lines for the, hey Lori, for the telegraph thing. And I don't know how that works. To me, that's just like, ooh, black magic. But I do know how communications now work, though, because I had to work in a company that did that. But at that time, the boys saw the crash. They went and approached it. They saw, markings on the metal in the craft. They saw the deceased UFO. They saw the one who was injured and the other one who was flipping out trying to take care of them. And because the craft clipped the telegraph line, they sent, we must be so very cautious. I'm trying, Robert. But the people at their base that used that telegraph line came searching to find out why it wasn't working. They were just tracing the line, and they found the crash site and they cleared it up. So not unlike Roswell. So, when I brought that up with him, that made for some interesting conversation. I love Jack Belay. He's so nice. That was when I had my neck surgery, and so I'm sitting there with this weird big scarf around. Y'all will see that, but it was so bad. I look terrible, but I'll still show you. But anyway, he is somebody that I'm so really glad I got to talk to about that stuff, because he pretty much knows things, right? And when I started doing Fate, I was just kind of like really intimidated because of the history of the magazine, the topics that I knew. I had read it, right? So I just was, it's so diverse what you can talk about here. And so that was an interesting thing. But from that point to now, it would appear that while we want these people at JPL, at all these other places, the Jet Propulsion Laboratories, and we want these people to do the work, we do not want this information shared. And at the time that the woman close to me was found dead from an apparent suicide, after she had told everybody that that was not something that she would ever considered. All of the people killed always said they would never do that. Or a lot of them did, probably not all of them. I'm pretty sure one of the gentlemen never felt that he had to mention that. But it was really wild. Really wild. She had looked like energy burns on her hands. She was from here. She worked in Huntsville. And she went to get looked at for this stuff. And they were burns. So I am going to probably need my glasses. So no, there's no probably to it. I'm going to need my glasses because it's my handwriting, right? I always take notes to read from, but I need glasses to read them. Some of the people, we've been hearing a lot about this, where, we've had the Congress come and say, we're going to be researching this. Then Trump has said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to bring everything out. Well, I don't think that there has been a president so far, no matter who wanted to do this. Amy's case was very convincing. Thank you, Robert. I'm glad you know who that is. But when you get to this, this matter, Bill Clinton wanted to bring this out. There's so many presidents who have thought this worthy of public information and have not been, I feel like, allowed to bring this. Obama wanted to do it. So many people have wanted to do this. And it's above their pay grade, as they say. They are not authorized to do that. They're not even, I don't even know if a president would be fully read in on this information. To my knowledge, none of them have been. So remember when Bush the Younger was in office on 9/11 and they went in and told him that the planes had hit the towers, that face that he made, I think that will be the face of whoever actually gets read in on these projects. So, because seriously, we didn't go from the Wright brothers to flying to the moon in 40 years without help. But when I started reading this stuff, there were 11 individuals tied into sensitive military, nuclear, and aerospace research who had disappeared or died in very mysterious ways, or just, felt it necessary to say publicly that they would never kill themselves, and then there they were in a bathroom somewhere dead. But one of the people who disappeared in 2025, Monica Jacinta Reza, NASA, JPL, Aerojet, and Rocketdyne. She had a pretty strong background. She has been missing since June 22nd of 2025. No explanations, no idea where she could possibly have gone, no idea why she possibly went. I mean, just gone. And then one of the ones that really, really got me, and this is because of his position. You know, we've been talking about a couple of people who were tied together. They worked in the same places. You know, Carl Grillmeyer, astrophysicist with Caltech, NASA, IPAC, Air Force Processing. He was killed by a gunshot wound on his front porch. And this is recent, okay? You've been seeing him on the news. But he was north of LA. And he's an astrophysicist at Cal Institute of Technology, worked with Infrared Processing and Analysis Center, which works with NASA. And he was really famous because he was the one who discovered water on other planets. He was very well thought of, very well respected. And when I was reading further into this, he lived in the Antelope Valley, and his house was so isolated. I mean, just the land around it was phenomenal. There was so much space. And it wasn't a place that you would really approach if you were just kind of, looking for something to get or somebody to accost, right? Because the odds were pretty good that if I lived there, there would be a munitions dump. Right? I would not live there without protection. And it was very isolated, it's very off the beaten path. And so, the reports relevant to this said that, well, it was a car hijacking, but the suspect, Freddie Snyder, was arrested for carjacking, murder, and burglary, not of him. And there was no reporting found that he was in the Grillmeyer vehicle. And that's typical. He has a cop. He's not dying, I promise. Tipper, are you okay? Tip? I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. But this guy, Freddie Snyder, when I started reading the reporting on this gentleman, not Freddie Snyder, but Grillmeyer, it was all about how could this happen? He was just shot dead. It didn't say anything about his car being gone. Nothing. It was just that he was shot on his front porch. And I was just like, I don't understand. Where did the carjacking come from? Well, it was because apparently that carjacking, and it was some distance from his home. And yet they tried to link the carjacking to his death. Doubtful. Doubtful. I don't think that would be a thing. And, when you sit there and you look at this stuff, it's just illogical. And when I start seeing too many things that look like, oh, do I look like I could be being played for a fool? Yes, I've got pages of this. People think, and, we don't pay attention. We get, or some don't pay attention. And, it's like, ooh, see this nice shiny thing down here? Don't pay attention to this dead man. He's just down here. It doesn't matter. But look at this, and that seems to be the way that we are taught to trust our government regardless. There's no way that, so-and-so could be doing anything negative because, it's all about taking care of the people. So anyway, this with Dr. Grillmeyer, this just blew me away because this was a man with contacts. This was a man who had worked in all of these places. He was well known in his industry. And they got him. Somebody got him. I don't know who, but I don't think it was, this poor man that they thought that they blamed the carjacking on him. I saw the picture of his house with nothing around it except an old white truck. Go figure. I'm being careful of it. But, there are 11 individuals tied to sensitive military, nuclear, and aerospace research who, they're not unalived, they're dead. I'm so tired of seeing all these made-up words when it comes to, trying to protect the sensitivities of people who would much rather protect imaginary feelings than say what happened to someone. It's just crazy. And this man was the one who, out of everybody, he shocked me. That this could happen to him shocked me. And the road was not by his house. I'll see if I can find that image and I will put it up there for you. It was amazing, the amount of property around his house. So, and Antelope Valley is very isolated anyway. It's not someplace that you're just going to wander into and anticipate that people are going to welcome you to their door. It's not a place that you would just go to somebody's door. And, it's actually north of LA. So it wasn't that hard for him to get to work. But I just think that it's bizarre. Another person who has not continued his work, as we would say. Michael David Hicks, NASA, JPL, Physical Properties of Comets and Asteroids. The DART project successfully directed asteroids near Earth, near Earth asteroids away, and near Earth asteroid tracking, NEAT, and the Dawn mission. And with him, no cause of death was listed. So, when you sit there and you're looking at all these things, it makes you wonder, these people don't work in a void. They don't. There's so much that happens. There's so many organizations that they would be members of. They would have friends in their community. They would have colleagues that they discuss and work with. They would have so much information, so much conference time, face-to-face time, conferences, video or otherwise. They would be having to have lab time for experimentation or testing or so much. There's so much interaction that happens with this type of work. And I just find it amazing that this is happening. Then This is another gentleman, and it sounds like I'm picking on this organization. I'm not. These people, you have to be this level of person to work in some of these facilities. So they do have mutual associations. Not saying that that has anything to do, who they work for or with doesn't have anything to do with what's happening to them. But it just really blows that this is happening to them. But Frank Maywald, and I'm probably saying that wrong. If I am, I'm sorry. NASA, JPL, 2024. No cause of death made public. He was the principal researcher at JPL, designed critical instruments for space missions. Pretty good guy, pretty high up, pretty intelligent, not somebody that's going to just disappear randomly, not somebody who's going to have, you wouldn't think, have their life taken from them because of what's happening to them. But principal researcher is a pretty big deal. Now, something else that I found interesting, I did not know this. One of the people listed on the possibilities of being a missing person relevant to this topic was Michael Levelsberger. And he was a U.S. Army Special Forces person. And if you followed the New Orleans, was it Mardi Gras or the SEC game, where they had the people that were run over in the French Quarter? This was the man who died in the Cybertruck explosion outside Trump, Las Vegas. So, had nothing to do with the other stuff, but he was Special Forces, and Special Forces does things that aren't always public. So, I'm just blown away. I'm blown away. And I'm going to say that the gentleman that I mentioned first, Matthew James Sullivan, who is going to be testifying before Congress, who was killed 2 weeks before his testimony. I'm not going to say he was killed. He suicided. Accidentally suicided 2 weeks before he was going to testify. I did not mean to say killed. But, it's timing is everything. And this is somebody that had to have good information, because somebody I do respect, Lou Elizondo, was setting him up for his testimony. He and George Knapp and, others were very instrumental in getting the hearings with our Navy pilots that interacted with the Tic Tacs. And there's so much stuff that it makes you wonder, why is this such a big deal for it to come out? It should not be that way. There should be, we pay for their work. We deserve a right to have answers. And, if I can get from here to Scotland, if I can get to Scotland in 20 minutes, let's do that. Okay, get my husband there. But seriously, this is real stuff. And it blew my mind. I can't stand the fact that there would even be a question that people could be killed because of their work. And if they have these clearances, they're not out running around talking to people. I haven't heard of any reporting relevant to these people. Not at all. And like with the gentleman who was shot on his front porch, he lived in that community because there was so little activity around him. You know, that's what the draw was to living in Antelope Valley. And it's just terrible. He should have been able to be on his front porch and not be killed. So I'm sorry. I have feelings, okay? And you know, Robert in chat brought up Amy's case, and I think that her case was convincing as well. This is she's a pretty special person, but she's a plasma physicist, so she would be familiar with these weapons. She died June 11th, 1922, and she was 34 years old. That is not even living your life yet. And so she was working on anti-gravity and also exotic physics. So when I looked it up, I've got it over here. Let me find it. Y'all don't mind if I Google right quick, because I wanted to be able to tell you this, and I had it pulled up. But exotic physics refers to phenomena, materials, or states of matter that defy standard physical laws or exist under extreme conditions, often involving negative mass, energy, or unusual quantum states. It includes exotic matter with negative mass for potential wormhole stability, superfluids, Bose-Einstein condensates, and particles with fractional charges. And, you know, with the exotic matter, theoretical matter with negative mass or negative energy density, which would repel rather than attract under gravity. It could potentially stabilize wormholes. I think that's cool. Exotic states of matter, unique phases beyond solid, gas, liquid, or plasma, including superfluid helium, which flows without friction, and Bose-Einstein condensates, atoms behaving as a single quantum entity. So it's amazing. I couldn't download the video to show you, but I will tell you that if you go to Cosmo Knowledge, there is a video on exotic matter. It's really interesting. It's really, I don't know, I just think it's cool. And if I were starting my education again, I would probably do this. But, you know, these are hypothetical particles and states of matter that have not yet been encountered, but whose properties would be within the realm of mainstream physics if found to exist. So you get to work on stuff that's not even proven to exist. What is that, right? I think it would be fun. And several particles whose existence has been experimentally confirmed that are conjectured to be exotic hadrons within the standard model. And, you know, I think that this would be my favorite thing, because I'm always trying to understand what in the world they're doing, you know, at the with the hadron colliders. And so how fun would this be as a field? And I don't know, that's my colored Kool-Aid. I think this stuff is astounding, and she was getting to do it for her living, right? There's not really anything that would be much more fun. And Robert If you could put in chat why you find Amy's case to be rather convincing, because I'm going to go ahead and talk about her a little bit. But allegedly, she and her team, and she was working in Huntsville, which is about an hour and a half above me here in Birmingham. She's from Birmingham. Allegedly, she and her team were facing harassment and psychological warfare to stop her work on anti-gravity and exotic physics at the Institute for Exotic Science, which she founded. And when you sit there and you think about this stuff, why? Why would this be something that would intimidate people into not wanting you to do it? I just find it ridiculous. Somebody did not. So there's that. But I'm really interested. She didn't disappear. No, she actually died. She was having burns on her hands that, bear in mind, that's what she worked with, was directed energy and that kind of thing. And she actually went to be seen about that. And that's what it looked like. It looked like she had red paint, I guess, light red paint on her hands because they were burns. And then she wound up, let me see, because I don't remember her exact thing. Bear with me. I want to say she had a heart attack. It says young scientist. She was young. I love her. She was young. This says that she was a very polarizing figure. I wasn't really getting that at all in the information that I had on her. I thought that she was, hi, King Friday. And yes, I am talking about the missing people connected to the government work. I'm just stunned by the number of people that this has happened to. And I'm trying to find, there we go, where I was. She was actually working, Amy Eskridge was working on anti-gravity things. She co-founded the Institute for Exotic Science. She had a background in chemistry, biology, and physics. The main reason she seems to be a topic of this is that she passed away in 2022 at 34, and a lot of the discussion around her death describes it as mysterious or suspicious. And the electrogravitics, the anti-gravity, free energy, and other suppressed technology often often linked to UAP propulsion. But the claim that her death wasn't natural, but that she was somehow silenced or sabotaged to suppress her research. And it's been mentioned, and it has been mentioned, some of my friends' shows and such, but is there any credible backing to the claims about her research or the circumstances of her death? She feels like a really polarizing individual, and I'm trying to separate fact from fiction. And she really was not a polarizing person. She was doing her thing, doing her work, conducting her research. She was working on advanced propulsion in the Huntsville Aerospace Defense Sphere. And there was evidence of her claim that she was being attacked with the energy weapons. So she suspected people were microwave weapons. And at the time she was typing up what she claimed were sensitive topics, documents related to her anti-gravity test, Schellberger is who mentioned this in a brief he prepared for Congress. It was the same one where David Grush testified. And David Grush, if you don't know, is the real deal. But there were clips of her burns and other alarming things happening to people, people following her and things of that nature. And I actually saw the imaging of her hands, and they really were burned. So the Havana syndrome has been a real thing, which is also directed energy weapons. And those were being used on Americans by the Cubans. So that is a real thing. And in the past, one would have thought that this was actually probably a mental illness, but it's not. And, there's a difference between delusions and mental health, right? Those actually are real, but these are not something that would be indicated by her work history, her education, her health. It's just I think mental health is just kind of a blanket term to justify or discredit. But she was also being harassed by text messages and phone calls that were trying to affect her. So I saw. But she was killed by a gunshot. So that's what this said. But I just don't think that there's a lot to discredit her. A lot of guns involved in this stuff. And, I was just so surprised when I saw her hands. I was shocked when I was hearing about the Havana syndrome, which I knew was directed energy weapons. And that kind of blew my mind a lot. But it was officially ruled a suicide from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But it's unlikely that that was the case given what she was experiencing prior to that. And she did say not to believe any reports that she had died by suicide if she turned up dead. And it's really, I don't know. I just think it's so dangerous. I do think it's so dangerous for somebody's work. She needed to have her work acknowledged because that's what she was doing. I mean, that's why she was doing it. She was trying to develop these things. And yet, all of these people were in this field trying to get knowledge and a way to use these things safely. None of it was safe until you've figured out what it is you're working with, how you're going to do the protocols, what is going to happen. We couldn't have gone in a jet 70 to 100 years ago over the ocean to go, it wasn't safe at those times. Now we can fly around the world We can be halfway around the world in 12 hours. I would love it if we could do it in 12 minutes, but I don't know how to make that happen, right? But these people are trying to find ways to have better systems, to have better technology to help all of us. And I hate, my personal thing that I hate is that somebody would be doing this in a way that would create a danger for themselves. Why would it be a danger for themselves? Why, you know, I guess Amy Eckridge bothers me the most because it's close to home, for one thing. She was young. And, you know, technically she was a plasma physicist. And she was only 34. 34. Had told people that she would not kill herself. If they heard that she had done that, it was untrue. And I just feel like I would trust that. I don't know her. I don't have a vested interest in being right there. And, well, I'm going to ask you, Robert. Robert says that it's his personal opinion that some of these suicides are triggered by the phenomenon itself. They fall under the influence of powers and energies greater than explained. So I do know of, we all know of some energy testing going awry with the Philadelphia experiment. So would you be referring to something like that, Robert, where we didn't know what we were messing with, so we wound up with people fused into a ship? I mean, that's fairly well documented. And let me pull that up. I know sometimes I just think, why am I pulling these things up? But I think that it's really important. And I I don't know. I think that would fall under the exotic materials. But don't y'all just love it when you can't type a darn thing? So the Philadelphia experiment was, show me times. Claimed to have been witnessed by an ex-merchant mariner named Carl M. Allen at the United States Navy, Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, 43, October 20, sometime around October 23rd, 1943. And it was ostensibly when they were trying to make a destroyer escort disappear, the Eldridge. And the story surfaced in 1955 when Allen sent a book full of handwritten annotations referring to the experiment to a U.S. Navy research organization, and a little later a series of letters making further claims to a UFO author. It's widely understood to be a hoax. Several different and sometimes contradictory versions of the alleged experiment have circulated over the years in paranormal literature and popular movies. The U.S. Navy maintains that no such experiment was ever conducted. That the details of the story contradict well-established facts about the USS Eldridge, and the physics the experiment is claimed to be based on are non-existent. But it originated in late 55 when Allen sent an anonymous package marked Happy Easter containing a copy of Morris K. Jessup's book, The Case for the UFOs, Unidentified Flying Objects, to the U.S. Office of Naval Research. It was filled with handwritten notes in the margins, written with 3 different shades of blue ink, appearing to detail a debate among 3 individuals, only one of whom was given a name, Jimmy. And they commented on Jessup's idea about the propulsion for flying saucers, discussed alien races, and expressed concern that Jessup was too close to discovering their technology. I don't know. I do know that I've talked to somebody that claimed that they had seen imaging of that happening. So, a Tesla experiment? Well, we know who got Tesla's work, don't we? But, so Tom said he works with kids with special needs. They can trigger an object, a type of OCD that can inhibit emotional stress that can be overwhelming and dangerous at times. So, so when they do the OCD behavior, does that inhibit their emotional stress? Because OCD behavior can be quite disconcerting. And I have worked with special needs people who pulled that up a lot of times, and it was very difficult to cope with. But I just think that would be cool. I mean, to know what it is that they're doing, because it's so difficult. It's so difficult. But, with the King Friday, why would you lean towards a Tesla experiment with that? Because there were several people working on different things. Tesla was just one of the more public ones because he was a little different and he would have been kicking butt if they had not been afraid, I think, of him. I think Nikola Tesla was probably still to this date one of the smartest men ever. And I think that would include Einstein, because sometimes with genius comes a level of insanity that goes with genius. Einstein had a degree of it. I feel like, what was his name? Curie. I think that there was some of that with the research into illnesses as well, physical illnesses. But I think when you're messing with things such as Amy was doing, the Havana syndrome was real. We did have people that were damaged by it. And I do know that his work was taken. And there's so many different ways. King Friday says that he believes that it was Rockefeller that betrayed Tesla. I don't know who did that, but I do know that it devastated him. And I do know that it was terrible. Tom says that with people that are using the OCD things to try to create control, we try to disengage them using a calm personal enforcement, and it's about all you can do. But a lot of times when people are trying to do that as adults, not as children, people will still do that, and it can be very intimidating. It's something that we're not accustomed to really seeing. You know, we don't bring that into our workplace, hopefully. And when somebody does, I mean, we all have had people who will try to intimidate and try to one-upmanship is a way to do that. Some disregard for what you're trying to accomplish is something else. Somebody actually in a business meeting didn't know me very well and approached me in such a way that I was the only woman in the room, and I got the pat on the head, you know, just don't worry your head about this, we'll handle that. And it was my position to handle that. And I was very assertive. I didn't have to be aggressive because assertive was bad enough. And I just explained what I felt like needed to happen and what I intended to do to make that happen, and told them that if they needed any other information, I would be glad to help them understand that. It was priceless. And it got me a raise and a promotion. So it's just one of the things that, you know, you expect something, you know, like this stuff. I mean, you expect this stuff from kids, you know, being jealous. And, you know, there's an old joke about, you know, writing your name in the snow or whatever. Whoever can do whatever, we're, you know, better. This makes us better at doing this. And that's not always true. Just because you can intimidate or harm or whatever, you know, that doesn't make you better at what's going on. And when I look at these cases, you know, I don't know. I just can't stand it. You know, we've got another woman, and I cannot recall her name, who was trying to just go about her business. You know, something had happened, and she just left for whatever reason, and she hasn't been heard from him again. And, you know, the thing that really gets me is most of these people are not the ones who would go off grid. You know, they have families, they have things going on, they have so much happening, and it's just not even something that they would think of, to go off and leave their phone, to go off and, you know, I have an Apple Watch, which has me in communication all the time. If I don't want to be in communication, I take it off. If I don't want to have people, you know, trying to be involved in all of my stuff, I take it off. And, you know, but it's handy because if I'm traveling and something happens, people can find me. I just think that I think it's a really big deal to, if you have a family, to be in communication. And I don't know. I can't imagine these people who are family people, and they are living their lives and they're doing their things and they're not going off grid on their own. why they would leave things behind. I also can't imagine that all these people would just be going off grid at one time. Well, at one time. Well, 5 years, 5 to 8 year period. The Air Force General, yeah, they're supposed to be all over that. They are, and Robert says this, our killed and missing scientist story is a direct result of interest in the disclosure movement, and you're darn right it is, because they work for the companies that would be interested if they're not already testing this technology. Because I'm a firm believer that we have several craft that have come down that we have gotten and have been testing. And I think we've been doing that since the 40s. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't think that was a strong possibility, if not a probability. So it's really interesting to me that when we start talking about disclosure, we're wanting people to tell us about stuff that's already fairly well documented, but we don't believe them when they tell us. It's crazy, right? I mean, it really is crazy. I mean, I've got Al back here. I've got my, Area 51 sign. I've got all the stuff that I have a strong faith in. I also have my, Tree of Life back there, which is also what I believe firmly in. I think that there's so much as humans that we have a fascination with. We have these scientists who are trying to, in their work, I mean, the Jet Propulsion Lab, okay? Yeah, what do you think they're working on there? They're trying to implement better ways of travel, or faster ways of travel, or different means of travel. It's like Amy trying to do that. There's so much out there. And I just am blown away that it's taken this long for these conversations to reach publicly reach our government level of interest. I mean, Comer's pretty serious about it. I hope it works. I hope that this brings out information. And Tom says, doesn't that mean others that work with those scientists are also in danger due to the potential disclosure agreement? Most people who sign a non-disclosure agreement know what and why they're signing it. And they know that if they go against it, then there will be repercussions. Probably they don't expect it to be their life. Okay? But it can be their entire career. It can be monetary besides their career. It will kill you professionally if you violate them, because people are going to come and they're going to say, oh, that's why you got let go? Really? No, I don't think we're going to hire you. So Robert says that anti-gravity and free energy are areas of research that may be hazardous to one's health. I would say they could be life-ending. I mean, just saying. But it's interesting that we even have to be worried about that, because it's such anti-gravity, I feel like, would be so cool and such a big deal. We have so much vested in our oil energy, oil, coal. When I talk about Scotland a lot, but I was so impressed. They have, 5 means of energy in their country: wind, solar, hydro, nuclear, and coal. 5 types of energy. in one little country. When I went to the Wallace Monument and was coming out, we went over a little bridge, and off to the side, there were many nuclear things there. I was kind of surprised. I don't know why. I mean, they have them here in Alabama, they have them in Florida, but the cooling tower things. But it was such a wake-up call, because here in America, we are coal and oil powered. That's what we use. We've gone to some hydro energy, but as far as other sources of energy, we're not very receptive to that. So anti-gravity and free energy are going to hit a lot of wallets and a lot of profit margins and a lot of other things that matter to people in positions of power. So I don't know that it would be, I don't know what's going to happen with this congressional thing. Are they going to be willing to talk about what really is going on? If there really is something nefarious happening? And King Friday says, for us to discover anti-gravity would be like Neanderthals able to build skyscrapers. Wouldn't it be fun learning? I like that, by the way. That's a good line. But wouldn't it be fun learning? I mean, we could build up and up and up. We could live like the Jetsons. I wouldn't mind that. I'd have a Rosie. But, it would be so cool. Would I love to have my own way to get around the skies? You're darn right I would. And could you imagine if space travel could be for everyone? What would you give to see the sky? Yes, the Department of War did ignore requests to release 46 videos. And I want to know why. I want to know what's in them. And why would it be against the national interest for us to know? That's what gets me. We pay these people. We pay for this work. We pay for this research. We are the reason that these people have jobs. But we can't know what's coming. We can't know what they find. If it's a national secret, it's my nation that I pay for. Technically, they work for us. They forget that sometimes. And I don't have a problem with any government person if they remember who they work for. Very few do. Which is why talking about this stuff, Robert was like, careful. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I am. And it's really, I don't know. Fate magazine has been in publication since 1947. We have a new owner right now who is so cool. And I'm just really so impressed with the fact that this magazine has stayed true to this topic. It covers everything. We have such a vast array of topics from the writers that send their stories in. And if you are not doing that, then you need to be doing that. If you have some, share them. You can send it to fatemag.com. So it's really a cool thing if you start to think about the fact that I don't know if a real politician were to get back into office, if this would start to be subverted again. Maybe the reason people are even talking or having these hearings and doing these things is because we don't have a normal politician. There's a lot to be said for normal. But every so often, if a rogue shows up, you can learn a lot because they're probably wanting to know too, and they don't understand why it's so protected too. I don't know. Maybe. But you have written for Fate since 1980, and Fate believes in you too. Robert Gorman is somebody that I like a lot. He is so cool, and you should follow him. Just saying, you should check him out. But I just think that I want answers. I want to know why these people are dying. Nobody should have to die because of their job, because of what they're doing. I don't understand it. I think it's tragic. I think it's frustrating. I think that if we find out what happened to them, the people that created the happenstance should absolutely be gone. Put them up. I think that when you can find something that can successfully redirect near Earth asteroids, you should get to live and see the benefit of what you created. And Robert says nobody should die for what they know or question. They should not. And historically speaking, a lot of governments have not agreed with that perspective, right? I mean, but they're not usually republics where we have freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of opinion. I mean, we think of things like that happening in Nazi Germany and Stalin's Russia. We don't think of that as being something that happens in the United States of America. It is anti-American for someone to be killed because of what their job entails. It is. And I have not heard anything. I researched carefully all these people. I did not see anything saying that they were leaking information, that they were going public, that there were articles being written that could only have been sourced through them. I didn't even hear about anything being done that could, and I dug into this, and I truly didn't see anything that probably could have even been construed as a threat to an industry, or I just couldn't see anything relevant that would be worth shutting someone up. I do know that Amy did step out and did speak out a lot, especially when she started having the burns on her hands and such as that. That was scary. I would have spoken out about that too, but I'm not quiet and shy, and I'm old, so I don't really care. And it's just one of the things that if I thought somebody was using technology to damage me, I would have spoken up. Was it a bad thing for her that she did? It looks like it was. Although, when I started doing this show, I jokingly told Carl, I do not feel suicidal. Okay, there's no, trust me on this, I'm not going to do that. But I think it would be so bad to feel like that was even a possibility that you would truly have to tell someone, no, I'm not. If you hear anything about me or see anything in the paper, just know that's not true. What kind of fear would that be? Of course, at this point, somebody's going to say, oh, well, that was just paranoia on their part. Well, shouldn't have to feel paranoid about that either. There's a lot to be said for feeling safe in your environment. There's a lot to be said for not standing on your front porch and being shot from a road that's so far away they had to be excellent to do it. I mean, you just cannot comprehend that somebody would really do that to you. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you know. I don't know how paranoid you are. You don't anticipate that. It just sucks out loud, as the saying goes. And, you know, I'm going to be honest and tell you that I don't really understand how this Michael, Levelsberger fits into this, the guy with the Tesla at Trump Tower. That was the guy that shot up the French Quarter. And he drove his truck through there, didn't he? So, yes. And Robert says that given the climate of current events, he hereby declares that he has no intention of disappearing or suiciding either with today's date. That's not today's date. It's a week ago. But, it's just, I don't know where this guy comes into play with this, because him I didn't get to finish my research on, but I still don't understand where this would have come from, why he would be including in this list of people, because he drove his truck through, offed all these people, and then drove the Tesla truck to Vegas and thought that a bomb was going to damage it. It burned up. But I gotta tell you, that was a bad old truck for a bomb not to even tear it up. We should all drive a Tesla truck. But except for the batteries and stuff like that. But they do look bad to the bone. So what do you think? If you have any questions or comments, let's put them in chat and give me some stuff. I see we've got lots of people sitting here. But that was the date that you made that declaration. You were worried about that on the 21st, Robert? I'm sorry. Why? I just, when I sit there and I look at this stuff and you're thinking about all these people get up and go to work and they don't expect these things, and and somebody this was so bad. Somebody, because I thought I had a comment over on Facebook, and what I had was a comment, but it was relevant to hopefully Lou Elizondo, because it was on a post I did about him. Said that they're tired of the BS. They spelled it out. Word salad and screw the oath. We the people have a right to know our origins. We are the aliens, really. The American people already know, so don't insult us with word salad BS. That's definitely for Lou Elizondo. That was not for me. But kidding. Sorry, Lou. But it's really interesting because people, I hear that a lot. When people find out what I do and who I do it for, A, they love Fate Magazine. They love the show. They are so frustrated because people keep talking like like we're imbeciles or children, or we can't possibly comprehend that this is real, or we'd be terrified. And I will always say that the War of the Worlds was a trial run. Orson Welles' show, The War of the Worlds, was a trial run. They were seeing if we could handle the truth. And we failed miserably. People leapt to their death. Lots of people died in suicides because they thought this was real. They didn't realize it was a storytelling show, and kind of like the Shadow Knows kind of a thing. And when they realized that their show created that level of fear that people would die as opposed to facing it, that's why, in my opinion, that's why we don't have full disclosure. They're terrified that that same scenario will happen again, only now we would probably take out other people. I mean, we are not going to put up with it. And Anthony says, as many have said, Earth is a jail planet for all the other planets that have life on it. And I have heard that too. And I have not always doubted that, because sometimes we are not the kindest species. We are not nice to each other. We're not nice to ourselves. We're not nice to our children. We're not nice to our animals. And we're not nice globally. So what I really want to invade here and repopulate, or interact with the population, one of my friends says that we better hope the aliens don't come to the South, because it would not be a welcome place. And we would probably, be less than polite. We are very polite, but a lot of people hunt. It would just be like, oh, this would be so bad. But realistically, Robert. He says he was once told by someone within the agency, don't put it past the U.S. government to do away with you. I think on any given day, depending on the scenario. But, it's really bad, because a lot of this has created the lack of faith in the government. And I think that it would be a good decision, perhaps, to mention that, because a lot of people have experiences, and a lot of people love people who have had experiences. And I have personally, because of what I do, spoken with so many people who have interacted with other civilizations, that have had personal relationships with people from other civilizations. And I know it sounds crazy, but I believe a lot of them. I really do. I think that it would be hard. They have to believe this to be as convincing as they are. And I've spoken with a lot of people over the 10 years that I've been doing radio about this. I've done Fate for 5, a little over 5, but my other show, Paranormal Experience, I've done for 10 years. So I have been talking to people who have had experiences with other civilizations that they are absolutely convinced are real, and they're so sure that they've convinced me as well. Do I have a little skepticism? Mostly, but I think that's healthy, because I have not had that full experience. I've seen things. I have seen what I thought were shapeshifters, which I think can be either paranormal or it can be a type of alien species. But I've seen things that change. And I don't think that it's crazy to You're welcome. You have a good evening too. I don't think it's crazy to consider the possibility that they're right. Yeah, I think that too. But, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But not all of these people can be crazy. You know, it's something that it's so individual, and it can be so frightening. And if what is happening to these people that are being disappeared, however they're disappearing, you know, it's getting to where the numbers are too much for it all to be completely coincidental. So I think that there has to be something relevant to that. Just my opinion. We all know what those are. But I think it matters. And, you know, Anthony brought up Stonehenges. And there's a lot of theory about that. I'm so clueless. I do not watch television much. And I was in Scotland, and we were at the Clavacairns, which has standing stones. I'd never watched Outlander. I had no idea that you were supposed to be like, oh no, if you touched them. And, you know, I was just mainly like, look like an idiot. But I think that Stonehenge could be. I think we have a place, and Anthony, I don't know if you know that we have a place here called America's Stonehenge, and it is up in New Hampshire. And you can Google it. That's how you would find it, Googling America's Stonehenge. And it's a park. And it is I can't remember the term. Robert, you can tell me. Neolithic. It is a Neolithic area that has so much. It's beautiful. And I've not been there yet. I've seen images, and I've interviewed the gentleman who owns it several times. I'll get him back on and be looking for that announcement. I'll see if I can't get him soon, because he is wonderful. But they actually, because of religious beliefs, whatever, they actually had their stone there. They tried to destroy it. They put paint over it. They did everything to it. It was horrible. And the whole place was vandalized. And it was really interesting to see what humans, I'm always astounded by what humans will do to other humans. I think it's terrible. And there's so much good in the world, but the bad is so bad sometimes that it just takes over the news, takes over the whole experience, and we get blown away by it. And that's what happened up there. And they had to work so hard, because you can't just, you know, scrape it off, because that's an historic stone. And it would be like going and splashing paint. Stonehenge, it's the exact same thing. And people got flipped out about it happening. Picasso's and, you know, art at the Louvre, but it's the same thing. It's history, it's beauty, it's everything that's being destroyed, and that's what happened there. But Robert, I'm looking at what you're posting here. How often have we eradicated the indigenous religious traditions of primitive cultures? Just like I was talking about over there. But history is quite clear that our superior society, air quotes, used violence and intimidation upon those less fortunate. And I will say that sometimes those less unfortunates were the ones that were trying to take over the land, because they didn't realize who they were dealing with. And disclosure, real or imagined, might be more Pandora's box than panacea. And I totally agree with that. Because what are you going to do? What is the government at this point going to do when they have to tell us that they've been lying to us for all these years, at least since 1947? And, I just think that it would be so much better, though, because I really think that allowing this stuff to remain in the realm where it is right now is not helping anybody except the people that are scared of the public. But they shouldn't have a reason to be. And try to break energy doorways that makes it possible for us to travel. I would love to have that. I would love to go into space. I really would. I'm too old now. And I wasn't very good at math when I was younger. I'm better at it now, though, right? I'm old, and now I'm interested in physics. Go figure. And trying to learn how to do them. So that's what I get for hanging around rocket scientists, I guess. But that's okay. They're good company. But, I do think that how would you, Anthony, I'm going to have to ask you, how would you recognize an energy doorway? Because, I've seen things when I'm hiking or whatever. I see shimmers. I just, Robert, you and I need to have a show anyway, with or without disclosure. I would love that. And I would absolutely have the best time. Y'all have to realize Robert Gorman is one of the best conversationalists, even just in chat. And he's a very special person. So anytime you tell me what day and you are on, my friend. But Anthony, seriously, how are you going to find an energy doorway? I think that they're there. I have been places that felt surreal. I have been places that I didn't really want to step across that log. So, because I'm not going to step on them. That hurts sometimes. But a blue wave of glass. Are you talking about creating those using glass, or? Because now I'm curious. Because now I'm not sure where we're going with that. So just tell me. But I do want to say that we have gone places that I did not really expect to go here. And I like that because, I like doing these shows just with information sometimes because I think it's fun. I love my guests. I will never, ever not do guest shows. But I think that sometimes when there's a topic like this, this is national news. This is all over the place. And I've been following this for a while. And when you are watching stuff that shouldn't become reality, it sets you back because this is affecting us as a society. A lot of people don't know that yet. A lot of people aren't familiar with what's going on because you kind of have to look for it. And it's starting to have a lot more energy. There's a lot more energy on this topic because it's being pushed through government channels. And we have a president who is actively talking about it and who is pushing the narrative to get us to the next level. We have been having congressional hearings. We have had pilots who, we saw the video of the pilots interacting with TikTok? I don't think so. I don't even do TikTok. But, it's just unheard of. It's unprecedented. And we have George Knapp bringing all these people, Lou Elizondo bringing all these people. We have, Brian Graves and Dave Grush and all these people up there saying, yeah, I saw those. It's physically impossible for us to be able to do what they did. If that were our enemy, we are screwed. We need to know what this is, which has blown away the people. And I have said, and I will always say, that my very best part of those hearings was Nancy Mace's face when she asked, do we have biologics? And he said yes. And she said, are they human biologics? And he said, no. And that was the moment. And that's why we need to have conversations, because they're not us. What is coming in these craft is not us. And they are not showing themselves to most of us. And the ones that I talk to who say they are having interaction are describing different types of individuals that they're interacting with. Not everybody is having the same type of people interaction. So, Anthony Lewis, I have got to talk to you. He says, being a military kid, you get to see a lot of things. I bet you do. And I would like to know about, so it feels like when you walk into an energy field. Okay, I know that feeling. So, yeah, you pop a bubble, you jump, you're walking, jump ahead when you're walking and don't know how it happened. Yeah, I've had that happen driving. I'm kidding, not really. But, I just think it would be such an opportune time, because I don't really know why I think about the people. I do think that they're doing a great thing. I don't have any problem with George Knapp and the work that he does. I think that he's very focused. I think he's kind of single-mindedly focused sometimes, but I think that he has worked so hard for so long to bring this information forward, and he's made a pretty good career out of it. I think that there's so much information, and there have been films that have been made recently in the last 5 years. There have been hearings, there have been discussions, there have been, so much information put out that this is going on. And we still keep having to back away from it. I don't know why they keep backing away from it. Why is it terrifying? Robert says some of us have difficulties with humans that only look slightly different from us. How will they react to non-human beings? I think that they're going to be very cautious with non-human beings. And I think that the non-human beings are going to be cautious with them. I don't know how that's going to work, because often when we hear reports of people having interaction, they're people that don't interact with a lot of other people. They live rurally, or they don't seem to be always people that interact with a lot of different kinds of people, but they still are chosen. You know, J.D. Vance calls them demons. He probably hasn't met one yet, so how would he know? You know, there's a lot of religious people that are going to approach it that way. But if you are religious and God created earth and he created us and he created everything that is, then he would have created them too. So how are you going to knee-jerk react on that? I don't think you can. So maybe when he meets one, he'll have a different opinion. I'm pretty sure there's people on this earth that he would call that too. I know I've run across some that I think are. So maybe he'll have a pleasant surprise. I don't know. I hope so. But yeah, you can't go into whatever this is going to be. You can't go into this with a preconceived notion that these are bad, evil, nasty people. I haven't heard of anybody really being eaten by them. Have you, Robert? Do you know of anything like that? I have heard of people being used for testing. Don't think I'd like that. I have heard of people having relationships with other beings. They didn't seem to have any problems with that, except for when they left. I know that some of those relationships were not consensual initially. That would not be cool. That would be a problem. You know, there's so much. There is so much. You know, we could do a show like this every week and never really get to the bottom of things. You know, we're never going to get to the bottom of missing scientists, because if it is our government, they're not going to allow that. If it's not our government, what the hell is it? That's a big question. And I don't have those answers as much as I would like to. I'm working on it. I'm working on having all those answers. But the movie Starman gives a small clue to it. It does. But, you know, when human, non-human relationships are apparently very complicated. I know 2 women where there has been procreation happen. So those are very interesting experiences that were shared with me. And it wasn't the sexual side, it was the after, you know, with the children experience and that kind of thing, because they don't generally stay with the mom. So there's that. But that's such a weird thing, because 10 years ago, I would never have had that experience to share. So fate has been a lot of things to me. So thank goodness. But, you know, it really is. It's a fascinating concept that we think it's weird when different species of animals here interact. You know, you don't see cats and dogs making babies, but apparently that did happen with 2 people that I know. And that, to me, took a while to wrap my mind around. I did, but because I don't doubt either one of those women, I know them and they're ethical women, and I've never seen them lie. Certainly not to me. So I had to do some thinking and some adjusting in my thinking to be able to have that conversation. Who knew when I started doing this that would be a conversation I would have not once, but twice. It was trippy. It's still trippy. And it probably always will be. because I don't even know what to do with that information. But I just process it, and it doesn't affect my relationship with the women. They're still my friends and will always be my friends. So sometimes you just have stuff. And why are we looking more in DNA and viruses that play on DNA? We are looking at that because we have not always the strongest DNA here. And we need to figure out what that type of thing is. Disclosure Day. Hopefully. Robert says Spielberg's Disclosure Day should be interesting. I want to see the real Disclosure Day. I don't want a concept of it. I want the real thing. I think it would be so fun just to see people's faces. All those people that have said, oh, wait, were all those people make those stories up? No, where all those people share their stories and experiences. So it's a big deal. And human fairy relationships are complicated. I know, I've heard that too. I do not know any fairies that I'm aware of. I do know that if I go into the woods, we've gone and done some investigations where we took people on trails and stuff like that here near my home. And I always carry shiny dimes, and I leave dimes because I don't want to pick up any fairies. And they like silver. So, and they're never there when I go back. So something takes them. But that being said, you know, it's so much fun. And while what we started with was a very, to me, serious topic, I don't take loss of life well. I don't understand why this would be necessary. I just think that this stuff is so bad, and I don't know why there's not a patent going, there's not a vehicle design, there's not a weapon creation, there's not anything that is worth human life. I mean, it's not. If you have somebody that's trying to work on exotic physics, that's a pretty cool thing. And I think it's a big deal that this is happening. Robert says lives have been lost. They have. It's wrong. And you're welcome for this conversation. Thank you. But I just think that we've got to come to the understanding that this information is going to come out. It is. And if you're the people that are removing these people from the conversation, that are killing these people, then you need to be held accountable. And I hope that our government does it. And I hope that you're treated with more fairness and given a chance to defend yourself better than you gave the people that had been disappeared. There's some still listed as missing, but there's a lot of them who have been found dead. And if you're who's doing this, you may get away with it here, but you don't get away with it for eternity. And for anybody who is in the fields that are threatened by this, I pray that you're safe. I pray that it doesn't deter you from the work that you're doing. And I hope that you don't have to tell somebody that I would never have killed myself if you ever hear that I did. Be blessed. Be safe. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And I just have nothing but respect for the people that are trying to do the best they can, knowing that their colleagues have been removed from the playing field. That has to be intimidating. I can't even imagine knowing that that was a possibility for me, going to work every day, not being able to leave, because if you leave the work, it's probably going to be the same result. I don't know. I don't know how these people are dealing with this, but I hope that they have a strong, supportive family and friends, and that they're safe. And prayers for the families that are missing the people they loved. And good night. Thank you for listening. This has been Fate Magazine Radio, and we will be back same time next week, same cat channel. Good night.